one.
Okay, we'd like to open up the June meeting of the Templeton Community Preservation Committee. A quorum of members are present. We'll jump right into the agenda. We will have some guests zooming in regarding the Baldwinville Elementary project, which we may rearrange the agenda to accommodate them so they don't have to sit through the rest of our stuff unless they really want to. That being said, they're not on yet, so we will start with the meeting minutes discussion of May 18th. Jessica's provided everybody a copy of the minutes. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to review it, but we can take a minute or two to do that, if so desired.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, motion made by Candace and seconded by Dennis to accept the minutes of May 18th as written. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will go to a roll call vote, starting with Candace.
I say yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
John says yes.
Yes.
And Joanne
I was absent.
abstained. So 4 yeses and 1 abstention. Okay, yes,
Yes.
okay. Hello, Matt. Can they speak to us?
Hello.
Hey, Matt. Thank you for joining us. Now, how many are other zooming in as well?
I think just me tonight, John.
Okay. So what I was, in the absence of your time, we thought we would, as long as there's no disagreement, we would change our agenda around. We had you listed under potential projects towards the end, but we'll move you up. We just approved the minutes. If you want to just jump in right now, we could.
That'd be great.
Okay, and so we have the quorum of members here on the board, and we also have David Connor from the Templeton Housing Authority in the audience.
Great. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you.
Hi. So before we let you jump in, I will just, Jessica is going to hand out to the board some information that you had sent to us regarding, and you can explain it all, the fact that prices have gone up and also that you were not successful in that first round of process and that there's additional rounds to follow, et cetera. So
Sure.
rather than letting me screw anything up, we'll just let Matt jump in if that's okay with everybody.
That's fine, sure.
Okay, it's all yours.
Great. Thanks, John. Appreciate the time tonight and everybody hearing us. I think I've met or presented before the majority of you in the past. The project is the Baldwinville School redevelopment, which since we last met in 2020, I think this was a pandemic project, born in the pandemic anyway. And MPZ Development, my company, went through a process to, acquire or be designated to purchase the school. And our proposal was to turn it into mixed income housing, 54 units. Since that time, we've made a ton of progress on the project. As we sit here today, we've been through your Conservation Commission, which approved the project. We then went through a comprehensive permit process where the zoning for the project was approved. And then we went through what was the first round of a funding application for the Department of Housing and Community Development, where we presented the project to the state for the myriad of financing resources that we need to effectuate the project. Essentially, it's almost a $30 million project at the end of the day. I have to start by, really thanking the CPC for the initial, allocation of $1,174,000, which was approved at the Templeton town meeting several years ago. And without those resources, we wouldn't have been able to push the project forward and into a process where, ultimately the goal is to get it funded by the Department of Housing and Community Development. The most recent funding round was very competitive. There were 50 projects submitted and 27 were selected to be funded. Of those 27, 4 were in Worcester County. So, that's great for the community. We were told that, the competition is really what was the differentiating factor. There were just so many projects looking for resources. So it wasn't a hard no. What it was, take a look at the project budget, talk to the community that you're trying to create the development in, and see if there's a possibility of adding additional resources to fill what was a larger funding gap than DHCD could support. And that's really the crux of it. And I highlighted it on the sheet that you have before you in yellow, a $3.1 million gap. So Jason Korb, who's my partner on this, Capstone Communities, MPZ Development. Jason apologizes he couldn't be here this evening. But we've been tasked with trying to raise additional resources to bring this back to the state and show them a smaller budget gap. So we've done that in a number of ways so far. We recently put in an application with the Commonwealth for the One Stop for Community Growth, which is a Executive Office of Economic Development resource. They have an underutilized property program. So we've requested $1 million for that. We're also looking to add resources by going back to the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston. They have a affordable housing program, and we think our project is competitive for that resource. What brings me here this evening is a request, and I reached out to John about this, and he thought it'd be best to just come back and have an initial conversation. But because of the cost increases since our initial application in March of 2021, we were hoping that the CPC would entertain an additional allocation to the project of about $750,000. As you can see from the sheet that I sent around, and we can go through it in detail if you like. Yep.
Could I just, so what we have in front of us right now is just the summary of the numbers. We don't have your document right in front of us that showed the $3.1 million gap, et cetera.
Okay, great. So that is the gap. I'm sorry if that was unclear. John, can you share with me exactly what you're looking at so I can
so basically, we just have a summary of what has been committed so far, which is the $1.174 million. The original estimate was $20,095,006. And that the new anticipated project cost is estimated to be $29,950,815, which it represents a 49% increase in
Correct.
the original estimate.
Yes.
Okay, and so if we were to, for example, a 49% increase upon what we have already, the townspeople have already committed, would be approximately $575,000. As opposed to, you're seeking $750,000. Obviously, there's a lot of pieces coming together to get this funding. The other thing that we don't have in front of us, but I know Jessica has, is the current balance available in the historic, in the, do you have that?
I don't have that
cut sheet from
from
so-
Kelly.
Yeah.
No, not after town meeting.
So, right. And obviously this is another year where we had our annual appropriation go through. And so we are anticipating an additional, estimating approximately, I think it's around $50,000 for affordable housing.
Oh, that?
There is preservation funding as well, which, we have earmarked. The funds have come from both the unbudgeted reserve and the historic. Yeah, so we're we're adding $51,000 in community housing monies this year. If all things goes to snap, that's the 10% of the estimate, and 51,000 in the historic resources reserve. But our unbudgeted reserve still has in north of $1 million in it. So we don't have that exact figure right now, but in order for this to happen, obviously we need to put together a project. And then, with a dollar figure that this committee would discuss and vote on, they vote to move it forward. It would go to the select board to go on a town meeting warrant. Now, the scheduling of town meeting typically are, we have one in the fall. I know your deadlines are sooner than that. Can you speak to us a little bit about your timing?
Sure. Yeah, no, so the DHCD has asked us to come back in what's called a mini round. As I said, we were not, granted resources in this what's called the winter funding round, but our project is highly competitive, but for this gap that I described to you all. And so they've asked that we put in a pre-application at the end of this month, June 30th, and then a full application September 30th of this year. So we can certainly, speak to the potential for additional resources from the community, but obviously we would have to follow, your timeline as it relates to town meeting and everything that has to happen, just as John described. We present you with an amended application. You talk amongst yourselves to see if this is something that you could support. You vote, and then select board, then town meeting, obviously. But I think that would kind of bring us to the end of the year, John. Is that kind of the?
If we follow the form, it's not unprecedented to call a special town meeting for a specific item. It costs, I don't know, what used to cost around $3,000 to run one. So then, so the selectmen can call a special town meeting sooner. They just have to post it a certain number of days in advance. That's their decision. I don't know if they would have other items. We would have to talk to Adam, and he would have to talk to their board.
Sure.
And so that's, cart before the horse, before we hear from the committee members here to kind of gauge their level of support going forward. Personally, we know that there is a huge need for affordable housing. We see this as a great win-win project. The estimated tax revenue, as demonstrated in the initial proposal, showed a payback in 10 years or some number like that. Running those numbers again would be helpful, given, new, in the sales pitch, should we decide to seek more funds, what is the rate of return on increased taxes or whatever, because now everything's gone up. But that being said, my personal opinion is that we should do what we can to support this project. We'd have to figure out what dollars the towns would be comfortable with, but I'm only one voice, so I would like to hear if anybody else has any.
So
Yes, Dennis.
I'd like to hear a little more about, I assume that we would get more back from this project after a 10-year period. Is that, or during a 10-year period?
Well, so if we worked with the assessor's office, we could see what is this project, it's kind of an estimate of what is the taxable basis and what is the current tax rate. Can you speak to that, Matt?
I can speak to that a little bit, folks. So when we made the presentation initially for the project, it was roughly $100,000 in return to the community per year. I'd have to look at the numbers again. That was a basket of goods associated with the project. Remember that the school building itself has never paid taxes, so this will be put on the tax rolls for the first time. There's all sorts of other municipal fees that will come as a result of the building. So water fees, sewer fees, all of the other ancillary things that come with a commercial type project. Multifamily housing is considered somewhat of a commercial use. So as it relates to the tax rate, that is in affordable housing, the way it's typically done is it's based on income. So the assessor looks at the rents and then assesses accordingly. So that you derive a value from those rents. And so that's typically how we generate a tax number for a property like this. So when I presented, the return to the community, that was the way in which we kind of look at this, a basket of goods, so to speak. So of course that would change. It's a projection, but it would be probably similar to what we initially projected is the short answer.
So there wouldn't be a substantial increase. In order to sell this at town meeting, this is one of the things that I think would have to be. This kind of information would make it more appealing to the voters.
Understood. I mean, what you're really getting with the project such as this is the affordability and the housing creation. And then all of the other things that come with, welcoming 54 residents to the community. I know there's pluses and minuses to that, but that's all kind of part and parcel to what we were offering here. And also the fact that, it's a privately managed building, has amenities that are available to the community as it relates to open space, the walking trail, all of the things that we initially presented. So none of that changes. I think the real story here, which John kind of mentioned as we started the conversation, is the fact that, costs have just gone through the roof with COVID. And you could see from the projection, we started this back in 21 at, 20 million, and now we're at almost 30 million. So it's just a symptom of the economy to some degree as well. So that's kind of how I would position it.
It's going to cost the community 50% more, but will they reap anything back in proportion to that? That's.
It's just a lot. You would just have to pitch it as now it's a 15 or 20-year payback. I mean, we're looking at the long and the big picture and the benefit of
Right.
of Baldwinville and Templeton and the businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So, right. In hard, fast dollars, it's what Matt is saying is the annual, revenue generated will go up just because it costs more to make, most likely. But instead of saying, okay, in 10 years, you're going to get it back, now it's going to be 15 or 20. Maybe none of us will be here then, but the town expects to last as long as the country does, I guess.
That's right, John. I mean, I ultimately think that the value creation is in the housing and the preservation of the school building. I mean, it's been a few years now and the building has started to deteriorate, and that's, no one's fault. It's just a function of a vacant building being there. And we want to move as quickly as we can to, renovate the building and bring it back to its former grandeur. I mean, I invite all of you, to come see what we've done in Bridgewater to the McElwain School. Obviously, you'd have to come as to not violate open meeting law, but there you could see what happens when you have something that has languished and is revitalized and really contributes back to the community. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here with this opportunity. The sad part of this is I'm coming back to you with hat in hand to say it costs more, and in order to make it happen, we need more resources. And so that's kind of where we are.
I've had a number of people.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Okay, Mike?
Well, I'll go on record as being an advocate of the project, both here and from the Historical Commission. However, I think we're going to have to build some consensus within the town to be able to do this. Would you be able to supply a representative to, if we wanted to have a public information meeting sometime during the course of the summer to
Sure.
get questions and answers done? We can advocate for it on this group or anywhere else, but there are going to be taxpayers who are going to be questioning the extra money. And I think if we had an open meeting where those questions could be answered, that might be a good thing. And if somebody from your organization could come up and answer those questions, that might be a good thing also.
Sure, Mike, that's a great idea, and I'd be happy to come and do that. And bring some images of the project. We do have a website that we've created to take feedback. So I'm happy to come out and start what we'll call a campaign so people can understand what we're trying to do and, the value that it will add.
Okay, so we kind of need to get a kind of a consensus and find out if anybody is, totally against this, lukewarm, totally in favor.
I mean, one of the considerations has to be, what our present balance of funds are for the CPC, other projects we might be looking at. This is, of course, a substantial chunk. So, I'm kind of hit cold, like I found out, 10 minutes ago. So I can't really, I have to process and know a little bit more pretty much about our budget too, before I can say, yeah, let's go, or, I guess that's where I stand right now.
I mean, we all, supported this project and the townspeople made the biggest vote they've ever made for any kind of CPA project. We are not a wealthy community, but we have good resources through CPA. This is exactly the kind of a project that CPA is designed for. We have to convince everyone that, what is the dollar figure that we would be comfortable with going forward. I do know that, there is always a challenge with utilizing CPA funds locally towards the affordable housing component. That's something that's in discussion now with all the groups like CHAPA, et cetera. And there may even be additional encouragement to utilize funds locally as such, because it's hard because it's a big number to get anything of substance done, and a small community to do a housing trust or things like that, that's still a little bit of a stretch for our capacity. That being said, if this were to die on the vine, now we have even more money that we're responsible to see used for these types of projects. So we need to keep that in mind, but we will need to run the numbers and to see what would be feasible and completely awarded. We're not looking, we don't change that. Joanne, did you have anything? Yes.
If I may, to speak to Carrie's point, I could next week ask the town accountant for, after the town meeting projects that were awarded, what the balance is in those accounts, and report those back to you so you guys know. Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Yeah, it's helpful. I also, I want to be mindful also of future things that we've been talking about,
Yes.
Other
Yeah.
projects.
There's a lot of different things that people have been shouting out lately that they're interested in doing in the town. Projects and stuff that haven't even been brought to us.
Yeah, I want to look at it kind of holistically,
Yeah,
This
this is a lot.
must be very disappointing to you. I know it's disappointing some.
I appreciate that. No, this is part of the job, and what we try and do is create these great amenities for communities like Templeton. Templeton has been so receptive to this idea and concept and so helpful. We had a very smooth and productive comprehensive permit process with the community. You guys have been nothing but supportive of what we've done to date. And I realize that this is a big request. It doesn't come lightly, and know that, we are seeking additional resources from everywhere that we can. It's tough economically sometimes to pull these things together. And I did not come tonight with this request lightly. I knew this was going to be a big ask. I do appreciate the consideration, and certainly we wouldn't be where we are today without the CPC support and the initial $1,174,000 that you've committed to this project. Coming back, is not something I wanted to do, but at the same time, I think, what John said is this organization, this group is set up best to support what we're trying to do here. We hit all of the buckets when we do this project. We're preserving open space, we're preserving a historic asset to the community, and we're creating affordable housing. So we're really, knocking checking off all of the CPA boxes. Yeah, and I understand the questions that are arising and the thoughts people have. So I'm open to do whatever it takes to get people comfortable, with the request.
Okay, well, given that this is our June meeting, and you have to respond to them by June 30th. I think, David, did you want to weigh in on anything?
Well, the only thing I wanted to mention, I know Matthew had talked a little bit about how the revenue back to the community was. And one thing we've seen over the past few years is the fair market rents have increased. And that bases the amount of money that they're going to bring in for the apartments, which will increase the revenue a little bit, which is what they're going to pay the tax back with, or payment in lieu of tax. So since, this started, there has been an increase in the last couple of years, pretty substantial, on the fair market rents in this area. That's not always a good thing, but revenue wise, it does bring in more revenue. You agree, Matt?
I agree. Yes. So I do think we should readjust our calculation for you all as part of the request, and it won't go down, but I can't stand here and say unequivocally that it's going to go up to meet the request. I mean, that's the challenge with these projects. They're expensive and they take time. But at the end of the day, they really do make a huge impact. And I think that's worth a lot, as it relates to return. While it's not quantitative, it's a qualitative element, and it's really incredible. So again, I invite you guys to come and see our Bridgewater redevelopment project. And if you want to talk more about affordable housing generally, I'm happy to have that conversation.
Okay, yeah, I don't think, the qualitative, question is something that anyone here is concerned about. It's just that, we represent the town, and we have to consider, what is the likelihood or what is the best avenue forward that will meet the requirements of the citizenry. And that quantitative number will play a factor given,
Sure.
Town's history. Now, perhaps, maybe David would be willing to share with you information as to what percentage of increase they may have seen at the Housing Authority that you could use to base your calculations with on fair market rents. Is that
They operate off the same data. It's
okay?
everything's driven by the federal program. So
Okay,
fair market rents are driven through the federal government. They come out annually.
We do have all that information. Yes.
One other thing I just wanted to add, if you don't mind, John, was, of course, as you all know, the impact of revitalization in that neighborhood by the building that they've shown on the sketches and on the website. It's beautiful. I mean, it really makes an improvement. I know the community is also looking at, or has applied for some CDBG grant to improve the infrastructure in the area to accept the building with the changes that's going to happen. And it's just going to revitalize that whole area. And that, again, helps beautify the community. And that's where this project just ties all in to help improve the community as a whole.
There's no question about that. I think that it's the point of trying to sell it to the rest of the community, is because I know a lot of people that have questioned me about what the community is going to get back in return for giving this building up. However, it's also, if this falls through and we end up having to dispose of the building, that's going to cost us also a considerable sum of money.
And then what do we have?
We have nothing.
Pile
but
of
vacant
bricks.
lot, right, so.
Just think the community is gonna have a lot of questions. I think they should have the right to ask the
Right,
questions.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they're going to.
Yeah.
So if you can enhance that in any fashion, that would certainly be a better.
yeah, and we will, of course, continue to make the case that, the sale of a project, of a property to a private business that will otherwise become a condemned site and an environmental liability is a pretty dramatic, that's the baseline payback off the top, and then everything else is going forward. So I think what I would like to ask is if this committee would be willing to entertain a motion where we could indicate a favorable discussion was had, that we want to hear more, we want to work forward, but we have not enough information to make any kind of, commitment at this time, other than to say that we're committed in further investigating this and helping you move forward in a way that's feasible for the economics of the project. Is that so?
I would make a motion to that effect. I can't rephrase your,
Yeah.
your statement, so I hope.
Okay, so I think what you're saying, Dennis, is that you would make a motion that the CPC, upon discussion of the merits of the project, lacks the ability to act right now, but seeks to continue to move forward to find a way to support this project towards successful completion.
And that probably should be communicated to the select board as well. Maybe.
Yeah, if it passes, we would communicate that back to the select board. Are you good with that motion?
I'll get it later.
I'm not. It's kind of like. I just would like to be able to do, I don't know if it's fancy or not, but I would just like to do like an informational. A night or a day, whatever, for the public, so they could ask the questions. That's the motion I like to see. And I like to wait until we got all the financials and hear what the town has to say to. I
The
don't
reason
know
I am
if that's a
proposing that we
motion.
discuss a motion is because he has a timed process
Right.
that has a June 30th deadline. And so if we came back and said we're absolutely not interested, that would be one thing. If we gave maybe this wouldn't even bolster the case, I don't know.
Any support is welcome. I mean, that certainly would be helpful to me.
Did you make a motion?
Yeah.
Or is Dennis making the motion?
I'll make a
I'll
motion
second
that
the
we-
motion.
Motion's made.
Okay, so the motion is made and seconded. We can discuss this further. Any other further discussion? Okay, so we have the motion to indicate our support to continue the discussion in support of your efforts to redevelop the Baldwinville Elementary School as voted by the citizenry in the previous town meeting warrant. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a vote. Joanne,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes,
I'll vote yes. Carrie,
Yes.
Yes.
Mike, Candace,
I'm just gonna abstain because I don't understand
you
it.
can say no.
Okay,
Is that a no?
I'm just gonna abstain from the
Okay.
vote.
Okay, so that passes 5 yes, 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. And I respect the request for more information, and I'm happy to provide that. So I will work with John to kind of communicate to the board, what you need in terms of financial information. If you'd like us to prepare the supplemental application, we can do that. We can kind of leave the amount blank, or we can figure that out down the road, and then happy to host an information session. So we'll talk to the town about setting something up. Talk to Adam about that.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we will, our next meeting, I think, is July 13th. This will certainly be an agenda item then to discuss whatever else, it needs to be talked about at that point, but
Great.
that will not be the public information session. That will be a separate event. And this is something that we would seek the select board's, support, and they, we do want to get the consensus to the town, but we don't want to be a hindrance before we have a no, for example.
Understood. Okay, then I will let you go to your rest of your business. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening.
Okay, Matt, thank you.
Good night.
Thanks.
Okay, so we took that out of order because he was on the phone. So we'll check that one off. We already passed the minutes. The next item would be the town meeting update, which essentially everybody knows that all the articles passed. I don't know if there's any progress made forward. We will, you probably were going to mention the admin update, that the grant award agreements.
We have that under
Grant
Burn
award
project.
agreements.
Oh, okay. Anybody have any updates for the town meeting? We were all there, or most of us there, or so it happened. Okay, we'll move right on to admin update.
Just that reappointments by the select board will occur on Wednesday, June 14th. Other than that, I have no additional information that won't be covered in other topics.
So when you say appointments, do you mean like they're validating the appointments by the boards?
Yep, so anybody that has to be reappointed or new appointments. So like Mr. Andrews to conservation or other people.
But the selectmen don't do that. The individual board does.
Nope, the select board has to do that. His
So
term
they
is
have
up.
to renew their appointment to the board.
Oh, I see. And it's not to be a CPC seat.
Right. it's-
No. No, and I will follow up with the assessor's office to see if they have an assessor that would like to join.
We've also had anecdotal information that the housing authority is continuing to seek someone and may have an opportunity to fill
Thank you.
the seat. And then getting back, let's see, three of us are elected. Have you been reappointed by?
No, our meeting is gonna be,
Planning board got canceled for Tuesday.
pardon?
Planning board got canceled for Tuesday.
Yeah, I know.
So it'll have to be at the next planning board
Right.
meeting.
Yep.
So let's put it down there.
Yeah,
And,
on next year's election.
yeah, and Mike, you have a meeting coming or
He already got reappointed.
already all set? Okay, because we're not going to reorganize until that's squared away.
Correct.
All right, and Candace, you're all set. right?
I'm not all set yet because I have to be reappointed by the selectmen on the 14th.
Oh, I see, to get on the parcel.
Yeah, because it's 1-year appointment. Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, sorry for my
I
confusion on all
purposely
that.
say Every year, like. ooh. Maybe I won't.
So the challenge with CPC Finances is that every month we get a report from the town accountant on the funds. But to actually get the outstanding balances of undesignated is not as
Easy.
easy.
I was looking
So
back at
the
it.
budget versus actual for April 2023, which was provided to you at the CPC meeting in May, is the latest financial information to be provided by the town accountant. So what I've provided you is just the updated project account balances.
Yeah, so once again, we need to try to find a mechanism where they can run a report that shows, and the problem with that is maybe we should be working with the collector. Because because that's really dependent upon the tax collection and then the depositing into the funds, and then it goes out to the accountant earmarks it to be spent. But the receipt comes through the collector, so maybe she can help us. I don't know.
I'll look into it,
Thank you.
promise.
Right, so as you can see, progress has continued to be made on the Gilman Waite project as well as the Grange Hall project. Scout Hall should be clearing out soon.
And also I added the 5 newly accepted projects. They're at the bottom.
Cupola.
Coppola, that's
Please.
Francis Coppola.
Yeah.
Okay. So that we can roll right from this financial thing to the current projects, and you can see that as we mentioned, these show the expenditures going forward. Obviously, with 5 new projects, we're going to continue to be challenged in getting things squared away because all the town projects will require bid documents to be made. And, Jessica can support that process, but it really needs to go through procurement through Adam.
To add to current projects, the chair and I worked on grant award agreements between North County Land Trust and Narragansett Historical Society. We've provided them to the select board and they've added them to their meeting of June 14th. So once the select board signs them, then we will reach out to the applicants to sign the grant agreements.
Yeah, and so that's something that we need to make sure everybody knows is that, we have to go through our processes to, make the funds available. And it's required to have a grant award agreement in place whenever you have an outside entity as opposed to a municipal department. Obviously, both of these projects are, continuation, they're new funding for organizations that are already familiar with the process. So It's just a matter of time, so hopefully that won't be an issue with the select board. Also, under current projects, that it will also be at the select board meeting, is they will be discussing the Scout Hall. We did submit the letter to them indicating our support for TCTV in reference to how the original project indicated throughout the documentation that the use included use by TCTV. So that will be next week. The agenda is posted on that. If anybody has a chance to attend, that will be another good meeting to go to.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Wednesday,
Wednesday.
Wednesday,
June 14th.
Flag Day.
Next Thursday.
Flag Day.
Okay, so she mentioned grant award agreements, current projects. And so then also we have to add, working with, because the department, Bob Zozek, DPW is going to be responsible for the cupola project here, but he's also going to be helping prepare the documentation for the Gilman Way project, which also will need to go out to bid. That may be a staggered bid, maybe different vendors for the surfacing versus the fencing. Do we have any news on the bathrooms? Is that what
They're
the
supposed to be done by the end of the month. So the other day, the plumber went as far as he could, and now he waited for the inspection. The stalls have been ordered. They're waiting for them to come in. And then, I think that the general contractor came back in again to put in some of the, put back the, the walling and stuff. And I think they're working on the toilets and things. The plumber was it this week he had off. Next week, I think he'll be back in another week. He said he's see me in another 2 weeks, he said. And they expect it to be done in a couple of weeks. I mean, that's what they're telling us, but it'll definitely be open for National Play Outside Day in August, and definitely for soccer season. It'll be opened. It's just been a long process. Getting it done, but the electricity is in it. The little dryers, the hand dryers are in it. Yeah, it's looking really good, and the piping's a lot of the piping has been done. That's what they were working on, all that plumbing. It's a lot. So
Great. Yeah, no, I've been up there a couple of times and seen some activity going on. So that's good. Just that everybody will be happy.
but yeah, this week it was just the carpenter was coming in doing some stuff in there.
So one other under current projects I wanted to bring up, and this also kind of fits in with the grant award agreements. In our grant award to an organization, we indicate that you must do a sign of recognition that funding came from CPA monies, which is a requirement of the statute. And so that's something that Holly from the select board office has been working on for this building. And so they have roughed out an acknowledgement for the CPA projects, as well as the volunteer work that has gone into getting this converted, rehabilitated for reuse at the town hall. And so that language of the sign has been drafted, and it includes reference to the fact that this was allowed thanks to the determination by the Historic Commission that is culturally significant to the history of the town, which is and then it's the discussion of the different projects, which includes the roof, includes the creation of the vault, we also did the digitization of records, which is really no place to put a plaque for that. When we first did it, it was over in the building that no longer exists in Baldwinville, as well as the assessor's office has those fireproof cabinets, so record keeping. And then the question became, okay, what about the cupola? That since we're doing the sign, should we recognize the cupola, put it on there now? We know we have numbers for that. We have a budget. We don't have hard numbers. We could put it into the sign now. We've committed money to that. Hopefully it's enough. But I didn't want to say yes until we had a chance to discuss it.
I think there was an overage, wasn't there? I mean, I think.
We put in a contingency, yeah.
So,
And I don't know when it's going to go out to bid.
well, you don't want to put up a separate sign.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Right, then we have don't forget the cupola. like
Yeah,
the
right.
add-on thing. And there may be other projects, just like if you notice the Dwelly Farm project out on Berry Road, it says projects funded in 2013, 18, and 19, and now they'll have to, stencil in 2023, and they've got room for it. So, That'll be great. It'll also be important that all the volunteer work that was put in, all those individuals will be recognized, as well as some companies that
Yeah.
donated, materials.
We should recognize. Oh, God, what was his name?
Will?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
He was
Will
the one that
Spring has
advocated.
provided a list of names to Holly. So when I get that back from before they send it off, because they're gonna come back and then they're gonna have to get a cost estimate, and that would be something that we would need to vote to pay for out of the administrative budget. So before we finalize that, everybody will have a chance to review it and make sure it passes muster. But I'm glad to see that that's going forward. And we'll just want to make sure, you hate to miss anybody that should be acknowledged. The important thing for the CPA funding is that it is in a plaque or an award.
So this will be all the contractors' name and all the volunteers' name on this plaque, is that what it is?
It'll be the volunteers and it'll be the language that the CPA provided funding,
Okay.
and any contractors that donated good materials.
Are we gonna be able to get one of that for Gilman Waite for those projects down there?
Yes,
Can we, is it possible if we do one for Gilman Waite? I mean, is it gonna be everything or is it just gonna be the bathrooms?
no, it'll be everything.
Okay.
Technically, we're a little behind the eight ball on that. We should have
Can-
already had one. I mean, we've already done a couple of projects up there.
My wish list is that if we do a plaque, could we do something and put something about Mr. Gilman Waite on the top part of it? I feel like there's nothing in there and I feel like the person who, I don't care if it's 100 years ago, whenever he gave the land. But I think it would be lovely to put something about his name, who he was as a person, because he did give the property and there's nothing up there. I think he gets lost in the shovel of all of it.
That'd be a wonderful idea, and I don't think anybody would have a problem if
No.
you wanted to draft something that would be, the basis of discussion.
Right.
And I can get with you on the other projects that have gone, the moving of the ball field.
Yeah, we have a lot of research to do.
Trash.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff up there. that-
Right, but it is something
scoreboard.
that we need to have up. I mean, we've talked to the Historical Society about their sign, where they're gonna put in what they're gonna do, so we need to be sure that we've acknowledged all the different projects.
Okay.
It's a good segue.
Yes,
So I see on here
potential
that,
projects,
well, the drapery
Okay.
project. I see money that was allocated 9,000, no, what is it?
Yes.
9,000.
9,000. But in this month's historical email that they send out, they're looking to raise money for the curtain restoration project.
that would likely be for display. Because the monies that have been committed, the $9,000 are planning, I think he said, he's got the dates already, as like July 13th or something.
June 22nd, 23rd, 24th.
He's gonna do the work, to restore the drapes. But there may be additional work needed for display or something, I don't know. But the $9,000, that was voted on is all that we have from CPA in that. So if the cost has gone up because.
Well, actually, he has it right in here, funded by grant from CPA Preservation Fund.
Oh, there you go.
So he actually put it right in the. Okay. I
Yeah,
just
so
didn't
that,
know if he was trying to raise more money beyond what we had already.
well, you never know because prices do go up and,
We saw that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we also are here to talk about potential projects and the named one is Houghton Park, which we'll get to. But since David is still here from the Housing Authority, we've had discussion in the past about potentially doing a project, and I believe that you're likely going to continue to investigate that. That could be something for next year.
Yeah, like I said earlier, or before the meeting started, we talked, I think it was February's meeting, I believe I came to, and what we're looking at is in the Tucker building is upgrading the windows. We want to keep the historical look of the building, even though we know the building's not actually historical, but it has a lot of history in the community. But keep the historical look, but make the windows functional for the residents that are there. Right now, they're so large, the residents can't open. Now, they're very difficult, and our maintenance mechanic has to go over, open the windows, and then, of course, it makes it difficult to close them. They're large aluminum windows that were put in the 90s, not all of them, but front of the facade, they never upgraded those windows. Those are wooden windows that go way back, and they're not very efficient. All they did is add a storm window to the exterior of it. I believe that was part of the renovations in the early 90s when they did the building over. I'm looking at trying to take the whole building into consideration and keep the arched window look and have it all glass so the natural light will still come in. But within that, have a framed standard double hung window that can easily be opened by a resident in the building and have it set up safely. So you still keep the historical look, but you actually make it more of a functional, efficient window inside that frame. So to do that, I'm trying to get help with DHCD and some of the architects in their office to give me a conceptual. So then I can go out and try to get a price, because that was a big issue. Like, if I'm gonna come to you, I gotta have a number. We talked about that the last time, and I said, well, I've got a big project going on there, just starting now. We're starting in the design work now, the new sprinkler and emergency egress upgrade on that building that we get emergency funding for last fall from DHCD. So that project's just getting underway, and I hope to be able to get on this window project that I can come back to you maybe February timeframe, with hopefully a number.
Okay, and so for everybody, Windows is always something that, becomes a point of contention in historic restorations versus rehabilitations. We adopted a window policy for a rehabilitation of a historic structure based on what they did out at Devon's, and that's what we've utilized for other historic rehabilitation projects. If you go to the communitypreservation.org page, they have an FAQ now, and they've just totally updated it, and there's a whole section on Windows as well. So I recommend everybody take a look at the fact page on this. They must have just released it because it all looks new and fancy, but that's a project that makes great sense, and that would be good to go forward. So anything else that you wanted to bring up?
Right now, that's about all of them.
Okay, thank you. So the Houghton Park, we've had, thank you
you.
for coming.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
We've had some discussion. Candace has come up with some, brought it through Parks and Rec about some different needs for the Houghton Park. We've had engagement with the veterans. Do you want to bring
Yeah.
this forward?
From the last meeting, I was directed to find a contact person who designed River's Edge in Baldwinville. I found his name is architect Andrew Kanata. I was also in this process provided Jim Breho, who would represent the veterans, and Candace offered to represent the recreation department, which is great. Also in the last meeting, the CPC was interested in what the total cost would be. I haven't found that yet. That's extensive, but in that process, I was provided with some historical papers and surveyed plans that I'd like to hand out while Mr. Henshaw continues to speak.
So as everybody knows, we've got I think there's two separate parcels of land there involved,
Right.
three separate parcels in Otter River. Used to be the old school, then it was the town office. And I guess you'll see that in the plot plan here. Now, Candace has pointed out that there's a need for an additional softball field. There could be potential other uses there. There's a need for parking, and then there's why don't you you want to?
Yeah,
Share.
so the rec commission would like to see in the park, all the swings and all the play equipment replaced. We would like to see the equipment replaced with things that are for not, for disability. So we like to be able to, if you were in a wheelchair, they sell like a thing where you can put the wheelchair in and they can enjoy this little, it's like goes around, and they have different things for people who have different needs, and we thought that this park would be lovely for that, because we don't have that in our community, have a park for people that have different challenges. We would love to see that. Autistic, there are different equipment you can get for people who are autistic, and so we would like to see some of the equipment for that. We would also like to see a small basketball court put in. If you look in the actual park right now where the play set is, there is a strip of asphalt. And if you look at the way the ballpark is and how they hit and stuff, there's a good amount that you could be able to do both in that area where the play group is, and then do a small basketball area. And we would definitely 100% would like to see the fields be replaced, fencing and so forth, and keep the current dugouts, because we think they're in good shape, but we would like to see it turned into a softball field, because we have a great need in this community. Between the middle school, the high school, their JV and their varsity team, and plus the Babe Ruth girls leagues, in our town, the one that we do for rec, we have a significant shortage of, space for softball. So we would like to see that. And plus, we feel like in that neighborhood, when you're hitting the ball, a baseball would go out too far out. We feel like the softball was a better fit for that community. And basketball is we'll go back to basketball. Basketball is pretty high at Gilman Waite right now. So we would like to have a second option for that too in our community between the two parks. And then we are very supportive of having that front section of the park for the veterans, 100%. All the commissioners would like to see that project be, a nice, lovely area for the veterans. We feel like that is a great spot for them. Plus, that's where the original building was. So we just feel like we don't want to really mess around too much with that property on that front end. And of course, it needs a new parking lot, if that's ever a possibility.
Yeah, well, it's gonna have to be a comprehensive plan, and that's why we wanted to engage with an architect to see what actually could get laid out. And so all
Right.
this information will be helpful to him. The question that we will have is, how do we go forward? Is it developing a project to hire an engineering design firm to do the work? And to do the layout with the feedback from all the parties, which is gonna include the light company too. So we need to connect with them because they've already committed some money to that gazebo and they have.
Definitely want to keep the gazebo. We like the gazebo.
Yeah, and so, obviously we want to keep things that are good and make something that is great for the town, but in order to do it, we have to design it out. Which reminds me, I know we're talking about potential projects, but I forgot to also mention, just to step back for a second, that we did visit the Templeton, the Baldwinville Fire Station with the person that was hired to do the design work for that potential rehabilitation. Mike was not there, but Rich Curtis was there from Mima, Jessica and I were there. And so we got to walk through the building. Just wanted to let everybody know that we'll hear more about that when they get their grouping together. So back to this project, Houghton Park. So, yes.
Little League used to use that. Does Kyle Ripken still use that used to play T-ball and minor league there?
No.
Should they be involved with these discussions? Should we ask?
They have their space. They have had some indication that they might seek something done down at the Little League field. They are not a town organization. We could certainly reach out to them and seek their input.
Nobody's used Houghton Park in a very long time. It's basically they did play when my sons were little down there. They also played at Gilman Waite until they added the extra fields that they have on the Army Engineer property that they own. And they also that they rent, and then they also use behind the Phillipston School District too.
They've always used Phillipston.
Yeah,
But they used to use the elementary school ball fields too.
yeah.
I don't know if they still do that or not.
Well, we see this one more towards for the little ones. We see it more towards our 8U, our T-ball, our younger, our younger ones. Whereas,
Teenagers, they're not gonna have any place to play.
they'll be able to play there. Yeah,
Okay.
They can go to Gilman.
they can, yeah, but what I'm saying is,
I would
for
prefer
us, for our league, we see that the smaller ones we put there. And then because the varsity team for the high school will always be a Gilman Waite. That's just a given.
That's softball or hardball?
So that's softball.
Could we at least contact Kyle Ripken, somebody from that organization, and get some input from them? I hate to see a group not included in, who's a recreation group in town, not included in. talks
Yeah,
about
I think that's a
recreation.
great idea. And I think, could you do that, Jessica? I think Officer Fliss was involved with that. Because I saw him at the town meeting.
Well,
and-
I'm just gonna say that a softball field and a baseball field are different dimensions.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah,
I'm not
Yeah, we just
necessarily.
want to do an inclusive process, but the first step is going to be to kind of get what can we do with the property. And so we had some discussion with Mr. Kanata.
I see this very similar to the Baldwinville Emergency Management Building situation, where I think we need to get somebody to assess it
To do a
And design it.
layout.
Mhm.
and then have that second be like, all right, here are our plans. Now, do you want to do it? Now, this is what that's gonna kind of cost, kind of like emergency management building.
Yeah.
Cause I don't know how you would at this point without having plans.
No, but that was the point of reaching out to him, was to
Yeah.
kind of get an indication from him what it might cost to do that type of a
I think he
thing.
didn't give that.
Maybe we should
I
have a
just want to
meeting.
point out one thing, though, that the park of Houghton Park is under the governments of Parks and Rec. And so,
Well, one time we're talking about being inclusive when we're talking about one thing.
right,
Other times we don't want to be inclusive, and I don't get that.
well, the thing is, that park was used for many, many
I know,
years.
I've been
I'm
here all
just-
my life.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I mean, we have a girls softball league,
But we
and that
can't
the-
make everything about softball either. There's boys baseball in town too.
right, and they have their own nonprofit organization, they have their Babe Ruth organization, their
If they have
Calvert.
enough field space, which they historically have not had. They've used town fields in the past to play. Little
Right,
League
and
baseball.
they can play town, we have a baseball field in the back, they have never requested to use it.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
not
all
get
I'm
ahead of ourselves
Right,
here.
come
Let's
and wait.
bring it back a little bit. I think it's a good idea to at least have an initial discussion, because they had also expressed some interest in
Mhm.
in coming forward to CPC. Separately from that, we also do need to kind of find out who the stakeholders are that would want to be involved in this, because I know, like I said, the light company and, what is the use? The selectmen can dictate, this is the parking area, this is the veteran park, and this is under the Parks and Rec, for example. So we'll work with Adam, maybe we can pull together a meeting over the summer.
To speak to Candace's point where, recreation oversees Houghton Park, it's still town-owned land. It's, very similar to Dwelly, right? I mean, it's North County Land Trust, but it's on town land.
No,
with a
that is
conservation
different.
restriction.
No, that's different because Dwelly Farm is owned by North County Land Trust.
The
It's
town
not
holds a
town.
conservation
It just
restriction.
restriction.
owns a restriction.
Yeah. So I mean, like, it depends if recreation wants to be in charge of that entire project, or if it is a multi-use, then DPW would be included, and veterans and other organizations and departments would be included, if that's the intent.
I don't, like I said, all I know is the legislation for the Parks and Rec. And I just know that all the parks in the town, based on the legislation, runs underneath Parks and Rec, so we have the say and we govern it.
But does that mean that you want to submit the project? That's what
I
we're
don't
trying-
know, I'd have to ask the commission, I don't know what they want to do, I mean, it would be up to them, but I mean, they did vote to currently try to go for this grant that is due July 13th, but Jackie in the town administrator's office has been trying to help us with this, and there's a section that she needed help with, and it's, just trying to figure out how to do it. One of the selectmen had given me the thing that even if, if we can get as much as this grant written and try to get it submitted, that even if we don't qualify for it, because that we also get into, like, they put us resubmitted to find projects that will match our application. So they feel like, that person said that we feel like we should really try to get it done, but like I said, we don't have a grant writer. The clock is ticking to try to get it, and this would also, if we were able to get this grant for Houghton Park, this would also be not take funds from the CPC for other
Right.
projects. So it is a vested interest of the CPC to about this grant, because if we got this grant for the town, or even if we didn't, the application's in the pot, and it could look for something else in the system. If they didn't say yes to that one, I mean, we could find other money for Houghton Park, and I don't want to miss out the opportunity to be able to fix up the park in general.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, I think
mean,
that's a
it's
great idea,
It's
and I'm-
difficult, this grant, to
Mm.
figure
They
it
are
out.
difficult, and I can agree with you that it's submitting a grant application is a lot of hard work.
Yeah,
And then if you do not receive funding, oftentimes you'll get feedback on what they're looking for, but you also have that ready to be tweaked the next time. So
Yeah.
it's-
Second
it's
chance
not
funding.
yeah,
It's not a lost effort
right.
by
But
not.
Jackie had sent me, and I had passed to Justice's office, to this, and then I had passed you that section where she said she needed help with.
Mhm.
And I just I'm like, I have no clue. It's not in my wheelhouse. So if anybody wants me to pass in, thinks that they could be in their wheelhouse to help out, we would appreciate it. Because we would like to try to get the application in, because I think it would benefit CPC too, to try to get it in, so that way we don't take,
Funds.
yeah, we
Yeah,
can, yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so we'll just keep this as an open discussion and we'll
But that's a potential project for next meeting as well.
Yeah.
We can provide some updates and continue to discuss.
all right. And we obviously talked about the Baldwinville Elementary project. Anything else anybody else wants to add?
Yeah, so I have a question for you. I see that the community, there's certain individuals in the community are talking about, they want a park, a dog park. Does dog park, does that come under CPC?
Yeah, any kind of open, any outdoor passive recreation, as long as it's not just dogs using it, there'll have to be some people there because they're the voters.
But and the Gardner's Dog Park was funded by, there's a certain organization that actually specializes in funding dog parks.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Okay,
They actually.
that would be good for the
the
folks that are interested in it.
Mm.
I don't know how
In
far, but,
Orange, there's one in Orange, and I
Okay.
think that was funded by the same source.
all right, in case they come to us, I
And,
mean,
and those kinds of things, like if there is an organization, sometimes they have a matching requirement and that's something that the
Yeah.
town could commit, certain fraction of the money through CPA and the rest through this
I think these are
foundation.
just people that live in a certain neighborhood that are taught, and I've heard,
You've got to identify the property. Purchasing land is
Oh,
not
they
a slow
have.
process. They have land.
Where's the link?
oh, they're interested in a particular piece
Is
of
it
property.
town owned?
Is it
Town owned
town-owned?
land?
It's currently having a building taken down on it.
That's tiny.
That's what I thought too. It must be
Yeah,
the
that will
neighborhood,
be a
it's the way
select
the
board
houses
issue.
are, I think that's probably what it is. It's just that the way the houses are close in those neighborhoods, is probably why they thought of it, but
Boston can get away with
Yeah.
it. but-
yeah, it's really kind of small
Yeah,
for a dog park too. I
there's a
agree.
little field
Yeah,
around
I
there.
agree. But I just wanted to ask in case anybody's listening, this is something that they're looking into or trying to get spearheaded, that dog parks are a lot of work, they're expensive. They have a lot of mechanisms to them. It's not just a piece of property. You got fencing, there's a
Liability.
lot to it.
Right, so that would ultimately be heavily involved with the select board as the party that is responsible for town owned lands.
Yeah.
But I believe it could be eligible. I'm not gonna say 100%, but if it's an outdoor park and you allow dogs in it, then that's the mission
Right.
of,
I just thought that property was too small for it
it
personally.
is pretty small. And the fact that it's right there on town sewer in a residential neighborhood.
Yeah.
Need to be redeveloped for
Highest and
tax
best
base.
use would be.
Yeah. They're probably better off looking for another piece of property
Yeah.
that the town
Try Temple Foods property.
owns.
Use that for
Okay.
Something.
So at the Monday's meeting for the Ag Commission, we did talk about trying to set up some sort of field visit to Dudley Road, just to kind of assess the way that town-owned land looks down there, dog park there. And see if there's something that we could recommend for highest and best use of that property. So we are still investigating that, and we are hoping to put together a public meeting of coming on down and getting ideas on something that we could do with that property.
Yeah, and that could include cleaning it up.
Yeah,
It could be a landowner incentive program where there could be some clearings made for habitat and things like that, so.
Community gardening.
but yeah, that was mentioned by Mr. Pease. I mean, you'd have to have a water source, so he thinks a well driller is just gonna give us a well, and I'm not so sure that's gonna happen, but
Wally's not for once a month.
we don't.
They have the good Lord.
We don't have a water supply. We have people with trucks.
Didn't have a
The
well.
house
Oh,
is
no,
there.
the house is not part of this property. She owns that. Mrs. Dwelly, because this was given by one of her sons. So the fields, we've had like these big water containers and actually water by hand to try to get the pollinator habitat, so.
And
Great.
there's the other property that everybody's been going looking at recently. I can't think of the name of it now. It's in Ottawa River. It used to be
The pool.
the pool, yeah.
Okay, we've been working on that, but just to confirm me that we can no longer do new business or old business. If you could explain that.
We can add it as a potential project to discuss.
Oh, for,
Even though
for-
the agenda's been posted, not tonight, right? It would be for the next meeting, correct?
We can't do new business and old business. Is this a potential
No.
project?
Yeah, these are potential projects. It's not clear to me what the prohibition is if you just can't put new business, old business on the agenda.
I mean,
That we always did just,
yeah.
Every, potential projects is the category, but
potential projects. It's a just discussion. You're just throwing it out there.
Might have been discussed earlier without having been.
On-
having been-
Yeah, the dog park was.
we're not moving towards any decisions on anything, but
Good.
well, anybody wants to talk about anything, I guess we should, just to be safe, send it to Jessica and we'll put it on there,
Oh,
name
Okay.
it.
Right, and again, we'll have that for next month.
And
They
we'll
have
put
it-
that on
Yep.
Baldwinville.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
And,
I have, more information. I'll be presenting and everything of that.
Oh, wonderful. And like little donuts. No, okay, so nothing else that I see listed on this other than notice that the next meeting is July 13th. That'll be 7 PM. That'll be here. And other than that, we would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.